Welcome back to Learning with me, Miss Killen here at MPB. We are still in our Unit 2 equations and we're in Lesson 4. So let's go ahead and look at Lesson 4. It says use the zero product property to help solve equations. I can solve equations using the zero product property to help solve equations. We are looking at APR 3. So let's go ahead and dive in and see what we got going on. The zero product property. If A times B equals 0, then either A equals 0 or B equals 0. So that's just pretty much common knowledge. Anything that you multiply 0 to, it's going to be 0. It doesn't matter if it's 1,000,002 or if it's 7. Anything times 0 is 0. So that makes this property really stand out because either A or B is going to be that 0. So let's look. When you are told the product of two numbers is 18, what could the possible answers be? Well, obviously it could be 2 and 9, it could be 6 and 3, it could be 1 and 18. So there's multiple options that could be our answers for this. So let's take this concept and look at something just a little bit different. It says, what if the product is 0? What would those numbers be? Well, like we just said, anything, it doesn't matter what the number is, times 0 is going to give you 0. So what if the product is 0? What would the numbers be? When we have two terms multiplied together and we want to use the zero product, or excuse me, the zero property to solve the equation, what would be the solution? So we see here on my screen, I have x minus 4 in parentheses times another parentheses of x plus 7 equals 0. Now, what I'm wanting to do is see what my possible answers for my x could be. So that's what I have here. So I'm going to show you how to work this. I'm going to take both factors of this equation and equal both factors to 0. So let's look and see how we do that. The first thing I do is I separate my two factors and make both of them equal 0. The next thing I'm going to do is isolate. There's a word that we've been hearing. I'm going to isolate both of my x's by doing opposite operations. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides of my equation here. So x would equal a positive 4. Then on the right side, I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides. So my x could be negative 7. For me to show the possible solution set, I would put them from least to greatest. So I would say that it's possible negative 7, 4. Those are my possible answers that would make this true. If it was 4, well, 4 minus 4 is 0, 0 times anything is 0. Or if it was negative 7, I would have negative 7 plus 7, which is 0. 0 times anything is 0, so either one of these is going to make this equation true. So let's look at some more. So I've got, determine these solutions. Now, I want us to work these together. I see in both of these that the whole equation equals 0. And I also see in this one I have 3 factors, and in this one on the right I have 2 factors. So I'm wanting to answer both of these to see what my possible x values could be. So let's go ahead and work this one on the left. As I work it on the board, you work it on your paper. So as always, like I said, I'm going to put a line between all of my factors, and then I'm going to make each factor equal 0. So I have 3x equals 0, x plus 5 equals 0, x plus 6 equals 0. I'm going to start from the left and go to the right. Isolating my variable, I'm going to do opposite operations, so I'm going to divide. Anything I divide into 0 is going to be 0, so x equals 0. In the middle, x plus 5 equals 0, so I'm going to do opposite operation and subtract. X equals negative 5. On the right, x plus 6 equals 0, so I'm going to do opposite operation by subtraction, and x equals negative 6. I'm going to show these from least to greatest, negative 6, comma, negative 5, comma, 0. So there are my possible answers for my equation on the left. Now let's try the right. I'm going to do on the board as you do on your paper. So here we go. So again, I'm going to draw a line and mark off both of my factors. I'm going to make both of my factors equal 0. Then I am going to isolate my variable by opposite operation. I'm going to add 6 to both sides. 6 equals 3x. Since those are being multiplied, I am going to divide on both sides. X equals 2. Now let's do the right side. X plus 12 equals 0. Opposite operation. I'm going to subtract. So x equals negative 12. Putting them from least to greatest, I'm going to have negative 12, comma 2. So both of my equations could have multiple answers. I could have negative 6, negative 5, 0 on the left. I could have negative 12, 2 on the right. So depending on what your equation is, depends on how many possible answers you could get. Let's dive into that one concept. It says, let's do some more practice, or so let's do some practice with some more of these like this. Now, again, I am looking at an equation that has factors. I'm going to, yes, draw a line to show my different factors, making sure that each factor equals 0. I'm going to do opposite operation to isolate that y, so I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides, so y equals negative 4. Then I'm going to look at that right factor. Now the first thing I'm going to do is move the fraction. I'm going to use opposite operation to move that fraction. So I have 5y equals 13 over 9. Now I still have to divide to get that y by itself, so I am going to divide the fraction by 5. Now you're sitting there going, Miss Killen, how do I do that in my calculator? Good question. So pull up the calculator and I'm going to show you. So first I'm going to put my fraction in, 13 over 5. Do we remember how to pull up a fraction? I do my alpha y equals, that n/d is numerator over denominator, so I'm going to press enter. 13 on top, 9 on the bottom. I'm going to scroll out of my fraction, and then I'm going to hit division of 5 and press enter. And it gives me another fraction. It gives me y equals 13 over 45. So then when I put these as my possible solutions, the smallest to the largest. So let's recap. We've just learned how to take a fraction and divide something into the fraction. So even though a fraction is considered some type of division, I can still divide a fraction by a number. All I do is put that fraction in, hit the division in whatever number, even if I'm dividing it with another fraction. So that's a good skill to have. Let's look at this one. Number 2 says, consider the following equation. What is the solution? Now, when I look at this one, I see I've got a little more math I'm going to have to do before I can separate those factors. So let's go ahead and work this. I see that 5 is on the outside of the parentheses, t minus 4. So I'm going to distribute using my arrows to make sure I know where I'm going. And I'm going to have 5t minus 20. Then I also have another on the outside of the parentheses. So I'm going to distribute the negative 7 inside. Now, 7 times t is 7t, but I also have the negative and the negative. A negative times a negative is a positive, so it's going to stay positive 7t. Then negative 7 times negative 3. If you're always unsure, you have that calculator skill. Negative 7 times negative 3 is positive 21. So now I can go ahead and I can split up my two factors and solve for t using opposite operations. I am adding 20 to both sides. So I have 20 equals 5t. I'm going to divide, since I'm multiplying on both sides of the equal sign. So my t on this side could possibly equal 4. And then let's look at the red side. Still trying to isolate that t, I'm going to subtract 21 on both sides. 7t equals a negative 21. I'm going to divide by 7 because of opposite operation, and I have t is negative 3. Putting my solutions in least to greatest, negative 3, 4. So I've taken additional math that I may have to do, putting my my distributive property into play, then I'm still going to have to isolate those variables on both sides in those factors. So you need to make sure that you are really looking at these equations just before you start going and dividing and equaling and zero. You've got to make sure that it's ready to split up those factors. That was good. All right, so let's look at the next. It says, use the value on the right for the equations on the left. What are the solutions of each equation? Now, this is time for us to master. So this problem is one like you will see on that end of year test, or maybe on that test that we have at the end of the unit. So I'm going to explain this one to you a little bit more, and then I'm going to let you or you and your table partner work this, and then we'll come back. So what you're going to do is you are going to take each of these and split them up so all the factors equal 0. Then you're going to see which one of these would be for M, or would be for N, or F, or P, or G, okay? So you're taking these to see which one of these would make this true. So I'm going to stand here, let y'all work, you, your table partner, see what you get, and then come back to me and let's see what we got. Okay, let's see if we can get this to work. Let's see what we've got. I'm going to work it on the board. I want you and your table partner to watch what I do, compare my math and what I'm doing to your math, what you did together. So here we go. So I'm going to take this first one, and I'm going to do each of these in color so we can keep them separate. Let's just do the first one in our black. So I'm going to take M and 4M plus 1 and M minus 2 equals 0. So there's my equation. I'm going to separate all of my factors and equaling all of those different factors to 0. Because we know when we have factors, we multiply them together to get an answer. That's why I keep telling you to separate those factors. So that was a good question. So I have M equals 0. So then I have 0 equals 4M plus 1. I need to isolate that M, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So negative 1 equals 4M. I'm going to divide. So M equals negative 1/4. And then over here I have M minus 2 equals 0. So I'm going to do opposite operation. M equals 2. So my possible answers for this first one is 0, negative 1/4, and 2. So I have 0, I have 2, and I have negative 1/4. All right, let's do the next one. Let's get a different color. Let's do this one in red. I am going to erase these once we get our answers just because I have limited space. Obviously, you would keep yours to have the justification. There's a vocabulary word we've been using, justification. The justification is just the because. All right, so let's look at the next one. I have 2n plus 1 times n plus 14 equals 0. I'm going to split them apart and make both of my factors equal 0. So I have 0 equals 2n plus 1 and n plus 14 equals 0. Using opposite operation, I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides and have negative 1 equals 2n. I'm going to divide. So my n is going to equal negative 1/2. So let's go ahead and put that up there. Then I've got n plus 14 equals 0. I'm subtracting 14 on both sides. So n equals a negative 14. So let's go ahead and put that up there as well. So I've got negative 14 here, and I've got negative 1. So there's 2 more answers to these questions. Let me try the next one and see if you got what I got. So let me go ahead and erase this, and then we'll try the next one. All right, let's get a different color so we can see what we've got. And let's use, I don't know, blue. All right, so I'm going to have f, and then f plus 2, and f minus 3 equals 0. Now, I can say that I can make each one of these factors equal 0. So I know my first factor is 0. My next one, I'm going to do opposite operation and get the f by itself. So f equals a -2. The next one, I'm going to do opposite operation and get the f by itself. So f equals a +3. So let's see, another 0, another -2, and a +3. All right, let's try the next one. Let me get a different color. Let's use green. Okay, so we're going to do this at the bottom. So I have 7p minus 2. Then I have 5p minus 4. I am going to make both of them equal 0 and split them up. Using my opposite operation, I'm going to isolate my variables. So I have 2 equals 7p. Using my opposite operation, I'm going to divide. So p equals 2 over 7. So let me go ahead and put that there. Let's try this other one. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So I have 5p equals 4. I'm going to divide using opposite operations. So p equals 4 over 5. So let's make sure I have those two. So I have a positive 2 over 7 and a positive 4 over 5. All right, so let's do the last one. Let me get our last color. And let's use, I don't know, orange. All right, so I'm going to have 4g plus 3 and g minus 6. I'm going to equal both of those factors to 0. Using opposite operation, I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides. So I have -3 equals 4g. I'm going to divide by 4, so my g equals -3/4. Let me go ahead and put that there. Then, using opposite operation, I'm going to add 6 to both sides, and g equals 6. I have -3/4 and a +6. So I have used all of my possible answers. Noticing how we made each factor equal 0 so we could isolate those variables. That is the key for us. Now, one thing that we don't want to forget, the zero product property, making each one of those factors equal 0. How to determine what the solutions will be. Okay, when I isolate my variable, what I have to equal that variable is what's going to be part of my solution. Okay, what you will do if you have to solve for that solution set, well, we've been doing that. We've been getting our x's or our t's or our p's by themselves. And our interval and set notation. Now, we really looked at a little bit more of the set notation than we did the interval notation, and we will look at interval notation more that we go into it. So we want to make sure that we're understanding that we're putting least to greatest. I am so glad that you came to learn with me for this Algebra 1 here at MPB. I'm having a great time, and I want you to have a great day.